This episode of We Are Libertarians is brought to you by Audible.com. Enjoy one free audiobook courtesy of We Are Libertarians. Choose from more than 100,000 audiobook titles, including works by Ron Paul, Walter Block, Murray Rothbard, and the Cato Institute. Audible.com also has audio of radio and TV programs and audio versions of magazines and newspapers. You can get the Audible app on any mobile device or download the audio to your computer. Go to audibletrial.com/WAL or head to WeareLibertarians.com and find the link to get one free month of Audible today. Hey, it's Chris from We Are Libertarians. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of technical difficulties, and neither our regular recorder nor our backup recorder worked for about the first 20 minutes of the podcast. So, unfortunately, this one's a little truncated, and you missed the discussion on the fiscal cliff. You joined the conversation where we are talking about the Republicans folding on many of the talks. If you want to hear that discussion, the audio is not great, but you can hear the first 20 minutes of the show. If you go to WeareLibertarians.com, go to the little YouTube button, and we have the discussion recorded there. Not perfect, but you can at least get all of the information. We talk about some of the giveaways, so go and check that out, and we apologize for the technical difficulties. The first person that you'll hear is our token Republican Libertarian, Greg Lenz, discussing the Republican reaction to the debt deal.
It's a hard case to make, though, as a Republican, to say, no, you're going to get less money, I don't care. You know, the conservative position has always been no. Like Bill Buckley, the former really conservative thought leader, always said the job of the Republicans and conservatives is to say no, hold on. You know, it's not really, we've never been seen as I say we, but I'm a libertarian and a Republican. But the job of the Republican Party has never been one to craft policy. I mean, unless it's social.
Well, that's true, and especially in the post-Pat Robertson-style Republican Party kind of era. That's true. But at the same time, crafting policy may not necessarily be what they had to do as much as averting bad policy. I mean, it's one thing to just say no. It's another where you can try and get things changed so that they don't go into that direction. They, just by saying no, thought that they were going to lose. So I would have liked them to just say no. But they thought that just saying no was going to make it so they all lost and it would be nothing but Democrats in Washington the next time. And that's why they're stupid. Because they honestly, what they saw that came out of this election was they saw Obama win and Democratic senators win, and they assumed that meant that America had now become a big government country. And therefore, them saying no to this big government, or Obama can say, equal playing field crap, they thought that meant that they had to say yes to what the Democrats stood for, which Washington politicians always overreact to that kind of stuff. And to a large extent, I don't think America has turned into this. I think what they did is they just did not like the Republican candidates that the Republican Party put forward, and they just went to the Democrats in response. I don't think it means that America has turned into this, quasi-European kind of democracy that the Republican or the Democratic Party thinks that we are, and the Republican Party is afraid we are, and they don't want to do anything because they think that they'll get kicked out of it. I think that's what happened, but that's just me.
Me personally, I don't believe that's exactly what happened. I do believe Boehner kind of backed down. I believe he let the president have his way, but he got held over the candle. And so when he got too bad, he walked away, and so we caved. But I think that also we have the debt ceiling coming up, and I think what?
The president's arrogance on that, saying that's not even up for debate now.
It's up for debate.
It's not even up for
debate.
It
is the ultimate leverage.
And that's what every
kind
pundit,
of leader is that?
That's what every pundit says is like, you can say that, sir, but it's up for debate. You're going to have. It's like somebody said after
we have to pay our bills.
After the Connecticut tragedy, someone said, "Well, I'm just not even going to argue about guns." It's like, well, you cannot argue, but you don't have to argue, but you should be part of the discussion because there will be one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you aren't part of the discussion, people aren't persuaded to your side.
Yep.
So, and I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to happen. It has to be part of the debate. Boehner, I think, is largely neutered, and he came out today and said that it has to be part of, we have to tackle the deficit. And I look at it, and I just say you have zero credibility. You could say that, but the fact is that this was your chance. You're not effective enough to get the White House and get the Democrats to see a limited government person's point of view.
And when a Republican has a limited government point of view, you kick them out of committee so that they can't do anything.
Right. You neuter them, It's because you're trying to kowtow to the White House and to the media and to the left, who say these people are just running America. They're wackos. I don't exactly know what the answer is. I'm going to let Greg talk and think about it.
Well, you mean with the debt ceiling coming up, in my opinion, that's the ultimate leverage. And I think the reason you can tell it's going to be political is right now in academic circles, the idea of printing $1 trillion platinum coin, which have you guys read about that at all?
I have not.
Yeah, Geithner has the ability to print $1 trillion platinum coin and deposit it in the U.S. Mint in order to pay bills and draw upon that. And that sounds like an incredibly crazy idea, but Paul Krugman wrote about it yesterday.
Yeah.
Academics are picking this up, and so you can see that this is going to become a huge issue by March, correct? That's when the debt ceiling hits. And I think you can get a lot of things done. I think this was an issue. If we go over the fiscal cliff, the Democrats get what they want. We gave it to them. The Republicans gave it to them. We saved $400,000 for a single, the highest tax rate for $400,000, $450,000 for families. And but as far as the debt ceiling goes, that is the ultimate leverage to get spending cuts passed. So I don't necessarily think it's a horrible thing at this point.
So let's pause for a minute and let's talk about one of our sponsors. It is Amazon.com. Do you guys shop at Amazon.com?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. I am actually
I read books, so yeah.
Yeah. I'm a Prime subscriber, and I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's excellent. When I first heard about Amazon Prime, I thought it was sort of a stupid idea, but you get
Free Super Saver shipping.
You get free Super Saver shipping, and you get access to their online instant video. And I was not much of an Amazon fan up until basically the Christmas season. And now I'm using Amazon like crazy. We have a headphone splitter today. If you're on the feed, you can see the headphone splitter. I went to Guitar Center, and I went to find the headphone splitter so we could start having a dialogue with our friends on Google Hangout. So I went into Guitar Center to find the headphone splitter, and it was $129. And I'm sorry, I'm just not going to spend. I've already got a fairly substantial amount of money into equipment at this point.
Well, then you have to give sales tax to the government.
So get on Amazon.com. So I went on Amazon, and I looked up headphone amplifier, $25. And with the Amazon Prime, there was free 2-day shipping. So I ordered it on Tuesday, hoping that I could get it in time for today.
And you got it yesterday.
I got it yesterday.
Boom.
I got 1-day shipping when I should have gotten 2.
For free.
And they are a huge employer here in Indianapolis and in Indiana. Plainfield.
Yep.
Jeff,
And the Kindle is awesome.
And up north, there's 2 big Plainfield distribution centers.
The Nook
around
can
here.
suck it.
yeah, suck it, Nook. So what do you guys order on Amazon.com?
Blu-rays.
Books and movies
Books.
and books and more books.
Amazon-
Toilet paper? Oh, man. There's
Sometimes
a deal
I'll get
of
an
toilet
instant
paper
video.
on there. Paper products, period.
You can get
Way cheaper on Amazon.
You can get anything on Amazon.com. You can get your groceries on there. So
Yeah.
here's how you can
Apple
help
Jacks,
out.
man.
All right, calm down now, buddy. All right, so
He says groceries. The first thing that comes to your head is Apple Jacks.
Apple Jacks. Well, so
What?
you can shop Amazon.com through our website, and here's the deal. You go to wearelibertarians.com, you scroll down, on the right there's a little search box. You type in anything that you're looking for. I bought a couple books today, and when I went to buy the books, I went to wearelibertarians.com, I scrolled down on the sidebar on the right, I typed in the title of the books, I searched for them, I bought them, and so now we get a commission for that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that commission and we're going to put it back into the podcast. We're going to upgrade some equipment and advertise a little bit to keep bringing you the quality product that you expect from We Are Libertarians. So go to wearelibertarians.com, click on the link. The first link in your URL bar, when you click through, you can highlight that. You can highlight the URL and you can shop through that, share it
with your friends.
And it costs you absolutely nothing, and it helps your at least one of your top 5 podcasts, I'm sure. So maybe not your favorite,
Top 5,
but we're hoping
top
to be
3.
top 5. Top 3? It's
Top
in your
3.
top 3?
Yeah.
Wow, we're doing good then. All right, so let's get to the debt ceiling. We've got a debt ceiling debate coming up. What is the debt ceiling? Let's pretend that I am wildly uninformed and I don't really know what you guys are talking about. What is the debt ceiling?
The debt ceiling is a totally arbitrary value set upon how much Congress can spend by Congress. or how much they can borrow. I'm sorry, by Congress, and at which point when they reach the debt ceiling, if they do not vote to raise the debt ceiling, then they must they can't borrow anymore. So in today's economy, or the way Congress is set up now, we basically have to borrow like a lot, and every year it's more. Every year it's more, and they just raise the debt ceiling. But in recent years, they've actually said, "Oh, we might not raise the debt ceiling," and then everybody's head explodes. But so Congress has to you have enough revenue to cover X, and you spend Y. The difference between Y minus X is what they got to borrow, and spending keeps going up while revenues, they don't really go up. They might go up a little bit because of this, but it's not a taxing problem. It's a spending problem. Spending is going up way quicker, and they have to keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. That means the debt ceiling has to go up and up and up and up and up. But if they don't raise the debt ceiling, then that means that they are forced by law to reduce spending to underneath the debt ceiling level, because that's all they can borrow to cover the difference between revenues and spending. And when that happens, they tend to make it sound like if we don't raise the debt ceiling, then government's not going to spend anything, and that old people are going to go and they're not going to have any food, and that kids are going to die, and vaccines are going to be mistakenly given to hamsters instead of people. It's just like they think the world is going to end if we don't have that new amount of spending. And remember what I said last week about baseline budgeting? It's spending going up. So the budget this year with the debt level this year could cover that much next year. If spending was the exact same level next year, we could borrow the same amount as we borrowed this year from that, but they have to raise spending and therefore we have to raise the debt ceiling. So that's more money that we have to borrow, and that means that's new programs, new spending that they want to do, and they say that these new increases, not having them, will make us turn into a banana republic. And that's exactly what you're going to hear in the next month or two, is that if we don't raise the debt ceiling, then old people will die, soldiers will be fighting Al-Qaeda with pea shooters, and just every worst possible imagining thing you could think of will happen if we don't allow Congress to spend more money. And it's not money. It's not like they can't spend money. They're already spending money. We have to let them spend more money.
Now, this seems to be a chance for Republican legislators to flex their libertarian bona fides, where they want to come out and pound their chests and say, I'm not voting for this, even though I know it has enough votes to pass. Let's be honest with ourselves. Do the four of us as libertarians think we should get rid of the debt ceiling?
I absolutely think we should keep it.
That's Greg Lenz, by the way.
And I think it enforces discipline. And quite frankly, if you ever wanted one strategy to become a small government country, let it go. Then they're forced to only spend what they bring in, and it would be great fiscal enforcement.
Yeah, but it's not good enforcement if they can just vote themselves over it. That doesn't keep anyone under the debt ceiling.
Well, it causes these debates that we're having now, where the possibility can come up in any way possible, shape, or form that you could there's something to debate over. I would like to see an amendment where you couldn't spend more than you receive in revenue. I'd like to see a balanced budget amendment.
How many economic debates have we had since 2008, and how many of them have we won?
It's not an economic. It's not an economic debate. I'm talking about they can add without the debt ceiling. If you had no debt ceiling, yes, they operate as if there is no debt ceiling to an extent. Yeah. But while it does exist and it is there on paper, then Republicans and Democrats, whether or not they'll probably raise it. But there is that possibility that they could say, you know what? No, we're not going to raise the debt ceiling, and then we'd have to cut spending. Without the debt ceiling, that possibility is gone. Now, I understand that practically the debt ceiling might as well not exist, but the possibility, I'd rather have a slim possibility than no possibility. My perfect world, or a better world, would be just a balanced budget by law, that you had to have a balanced budget, but we don't live in that world right now, so we have one with the debt ceiling, and I'd like to keep it.
Okay.
So what do you think, Guld?
Well, I don't want to accept reality, and what we have right now isn't working. The debt ceiling doesn't stop the government
your
from
junk is
spending
within
more money.
reach, and I will violate the non-aggression principle, pal.
The debt ceiling doesn't stop the government from spending anything. They can vote them. They have the power to do whatever they want to do. That we don't need more. We don't need a debt ceiling. We need a balanced budget. That's what we need.
I do think that the system is broken. I do think that it is a tool that is used by the media and politicians to bring about fear. But I do also see the point that it keeps the debt in perspective. It's not a leash because it's like one of those retractable leashes you have for your dog, but it's never ending.
Are we almost to $17 trillion debt now?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think anyone understands that. I don't think there's any perspective.
But at least it's not just libertarians and our libertarian community and libertarian universe talking about debt. It's a broader discussion. It's a broader debate. It's on Sunday talk shows. People are actually worried about it. Now, politicians aren't doing a darn thing about it, and that's because they're all spineless weasels, but at least it's in the public eye. So let's settle it. Counterpoint, Mr. Galt?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Let's show a vote of hands. Would you vote to get rid of the debt ceiling?
Get rid of it and replace it with nothing but unlimited spending with no debt ceiling?
Just get rid of the current system right now. We'll figure something out in committee. All right, so all those...
Yeah, there we go.
Paul Elmore's raising his hand. We'll come to
alone.
you in just a second, Paul, so try to turn your webcam upside down because you look like you're hanging from the ceiling like Batman. And if you've got headphones, that'd be great. So I'm in favor of keeping the debt ceiling. Who's with me?
Well, hang on.
My God. Libertarians.
No,
nothing
hang on,
can
hang
be
on,
simple.
hang on, time
This
out.
is why we can't govern,
Chris,
because you
Galt.
can't just say yes or no.
Let me ask you a question. Are you saying that are you saying that you're for getting rid of the current system because you assume if we get rid of it, we'll replace with something better?
Sure, yeah.
That's more politically infeasible than having the debt ceiling exist and having a chance of it not being raised. Having the debt ceiling completely removed and replaced with something better is more politically impractical than what we're talking about.
And what are you talking about?
Having the
slim
debt
chance
ceiling
that
exist.
the media pundits are going to be on your side for once
No,
and say
but-
that we
Talking
don't
to that
need more
mic,
spending?
But at least admit when what you're trying to offer as a counter argument to us is more politically impossible than what we are talking about.
It's not impossible.
It is.
It is not.
It is
impossible
way
if you
more
have a
impossible.
political party that'll stand by some values, and that's why
If
I'm
they
not a Republican.
wait a minute, and they can't even stand by no political party can even stand by the value of having the debt ceiling stay down. So those are the people that are going to replace the non-debt ceiling system with something better.
What?
That's what you're saying. That's exactly what you're saying. That the same people that can't even agree to keep the debt ceiling stuck in one point are the people that are going to replace it with a balanced budget.
Well, all right.
Hang on, Paul. We'll get to you in just a second. This is going to be a minute.
This is what I'm saying. You get rid of the debt ceiling. You let the government spend their money. You let it destroy itself. And then
Talking to the
my
mic.
mic is pretty close to my face.
It can't destroy itself.
Why?
It has the ability to print money.
Yeah, but it
That is not tied
Germany
to
had the
anything.
ability to print money. And
Yeah, the
they
Weimar
failed.
Republic did. They also
USSR
had- they had
had the
political
ability to print
instability.
money, and they failed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not sustainable.
Well,
That sooner or later it'll come crumbling down.
yeah, that assumes you have political instability in the United States, and which maybe you could if you printed a lot of money. But the alternative would be to go back to a gold standard, which is a good thing, but it's not politically feasible now.
I mean, what is politically feasible?
To continue printing money slowly, like they're doing right now. They're never
Well,
going
I
to.
just
They're
won't
never going to
accept
get rid of
that.
it.
I just won't accept that as a
They'll
solution.
get rid of the debt ceiling. If they were to get rid of the debt ceiling, there's no way they'd ever replace
Political
it.
debate should be about finding solutions, not compromises.
All right,
That's the difference.
let's
And
see
a
why
debt
Paul-
ceiling is a compromise, not a solution.
let's
Period.
go to Google Hangouts. Let's see if we can get this.
To tell you the truth, the political solution by your logic would be no government.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break here. Just a
Don't
second.
would work.
don't compromise by saying that we should change the existing government because the real answer is no government.
No, there are things
That's
in
your
the
logic.
right direction.
That
No.
is your
No.
logic.
No, that's not right. That's not my logic.
That is exactly your logic.
All right, let's hear from Paul.
Let's go to Paul on Google Hangouts. Let's give this a shot and see.
Hello.
Hey, Paul, how are you doing?
Can you? Great. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why do we can hear you just fine. It's working great.
Okay.
Why in the world would you possibly agree with Chris Galt on anything?
Why are you on the ceiling?
Yeah, you're a little upside down. If you're not watching the video, Paul's upside down, but that's all right. At least he sounds good.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, the debt ceiling was created about the time of World War I, and prior to the debt ceiling, they had to approve borrowing by they had to vote for each bond issue, and this was a way for them to speed up their borrowing by just setting a limit, and we'll just borrow up to this point, and then we'll have to vote and extend it further. And it seems like ever since then, it's just been, the debt has just creeped up, and
yeah, it's been an arbitrary ceiling. It's not a real ceiling. Yeah.
But the real question is, by getting rid of the debt ceiling, do you think we'd go back to that? Or that we'd go to, now they don't even have to vote to raise something. They'll just raise debt as they want. Because that's what would happen.
You have a political faction stand up for some values and have an amendment that says you have to have a balanced budget every year.
Who's gonna stand up for that?
I mean, some libertarians.
Libertarians are gonna do that. And how many offices do they hold?
I mean, what's your point?
My point is that you're offering something that is not a solution to the problem that exists in the world that we live in. You're saying something that would be awesome if we could do that. It would be awesome.
We can do that.
But we can't do that right now today. And the problem is that in the next few years is when all this stuff's going to hit the fan. And what you're talking about is going to take decades upon decades upon decades.
Is what the solution you bring in after the shit hits the fan.
Okay,
because it's going to hit the fan either way.
Solution
it doesn't matter if we have a debt ceiling or not.
Wait a minute. The solution to after the country collapses is replace the broken country with what it had, but this thing's different. I mean, you're talking about the economy.
That's not what I said at all.
All right, Grandma.
After the stuff hits the fan.
Grandpa, hold on. Let's go back to Paul. So, Paul, what if the system is broken? What should we replace it with? What is the solution to fixing our debt? To you want to get rid of the debt ceiling. What do you replace it with to put a leash on the government?
Well, I think in the interim, if you can freeze the debt ceiling somewhere and put it in some way to make it more difficult to raise it, or to slow down raising it, I'd be in favor of that. But
this libertarian wants to pass a law.
That's exactly what I was going to say when he was done talking. That's all Creighton's over here saying is, we'll fix the problem by passing a law. Well, no, you can't have more debt.
You can let us hit the limit and then never raise it.
I mean, but that's not how Congress operates. Congress says we're above the law.
So if the
solution is not
to pass a law, then what is the solution?
Not to pass a law.
Then which allows what to happen?
Yeah, rampant spending. I mean, we have rampant spending already. What is $17 trillion? What's the difference between $17 trillion and 25?
Because you want the whole.
There's no difference. We're already past
Red
the point.
Dawn to happen, and then you want Red Dawn to happen, and then we emerge from the Wolverine High School with Patrick Swayze and rifles in our arms and take back America. That is exactly what you're saying.
Don't paint this picture on me.
That is what you're saying.
Don't paint this picture on me. That is not what I'm saying.
You just said a minute ago that you want the whole thing to collapse. And then we build something out and it collapses.
What I'm saying is collapse is inevitable. You have to accept that before you can move on.
Okay, collapse is inevitable, but don't you dare try and stop it.
You can't stop it.
But you can stop it.
No, you can't.
You got to pass a law.
No, you can't. It's too late. It is completely too late. And anyone that thinks otherwise
And what you're saying requires a law to be passed. You said you'd rather have a system than the debt ceiling. To have a system different than the debt ceiling requires legislation to be passed to change the system. So what you're saying requires a law to be passed too.
No, it doesn't.
Passing no laws would mean we stay
requires
at the
you
debt
to pick
ceiling.
up your gun and go down to Washington, D.C.
Oh, boy.
See? That's what it requires.
Earlier in the podcast when I said we try to bring you fair and level-headed analysis, never mind.
I'm sorry, but he totally just...
All right, let's...
Red Dawn crap. I'm not, saying that at all.
You just said get a gun.
Just say get a gun and go to Washington.
I didn't... I said that's one of the solutions.
That's one of the solutions. That's violating the
Another solution.
It's better than passing a law.
That's violating the non-aggression principle.
No, the violation of the non-aggression principle is when you require me to give you part of my paycheck. That's aggression. You've already taken the action of aggression.
So
Once
you've
taken the action of aggression, you can defend yourself with violence.
Then do that when they come to take your money.
They already... I mean...
are you doing it?
No. One person is not going to take down the federal government.
But
I mean, unless you're Guy Fawkes, you're not taking down the government by yourself.
well, he had.
All right.
he
Well,
had Natalie Portman.
we're
He
venturing.
had Natalie Portman.
We're venturing into. Hold on, guys.
Who
We're-
wants to be my Natalie Portman?
I have a point.
Maya?
I want. Chris, I want you to answer my point. If
Oh my God!
is replacing the debt ceiling, does that require legislation to do?
No.
No. You said, do you want to replace the system with the system as we have it set up with something else? So you're saying march on Washington and replace it by force, or are you saying replace the debt ceiling system with a different legal setup that requires different things to happen?
I haven't said replace it with something else. I've
You
said
totally
get rid of it.
He said, "Who wants to replace the debt ceiling with something else?" And you raised your hand.
Oh no, he said get rid of the debt ceiling, and you tried to infer that it meant replacing it with something else. Am I right,
But
Spangle?
even then,
I don't know what's
even
going
then-
on.
You said
Chris,
raise your
I lost
hand if
Chris,
you want to get rid of the debt
even-
ceiling.
Yes.
Chris,
Period. And I
any-
raised my hand.
Hey.
I never said replace it with anything else,
Okay,
did I?
either
Look
way.
at him putting
either
words
way,
in my mouth
Either
now.
way, even if that is what you're
I mean,
saying,
the podcast is recorded, so everyone
if
knows
that's
what I
all
said.
you're going to stay with. Removing the debt ceiling requires legislation to be passed.
Yeah, no, it requires the
exists.
nullification of legislation.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
If they want to get rid of the debt ceiling, they just pass a law that says there is no more debt ceiling.
I wish
What
Dan's
you are
niece was
saying
here.
requires a law as well. You're
No, it
offering-
doesn't.
It does.
It requires a red pen.
Oh my God.
a red pen.
You're kidding
What the
me.
hell is going on?
You're
There's like
absolutely
So you're
kidding
saying
me.
what?
Okay.
You're
I'm
serious
lost.
right now.
Greg, give the microphone to Greg. Is any of this making sense to you? What they're talking
And
about?
it makes sense to me. I understand Chris.
Translate this. Translate this.
Chris
Translate
doesn't
Creighton
want
and
to
Chris
say
for
he
dummies
wants
to
Red
me.
Dawn. He doesn't want to say he wants
I
Red
don't.
Dawn, but he thinks collapse is inevitable.
It is.
It's not.
It
It's not
is.
inevitable because we can always pass laws that can fix things and get it on track.
No, we cannot.
You absolutely
No,
can.
you.
We could get rid of. We could pass law.
So here's the problem, Chris Galt, is that you are now saying what I said earlier, and then you spent the whole podcast mocking me for. It is
Reality.
Reality is that you cannot pass a law, so collapse is inevitable. So touche.
The reality is passing a law cannot save anything.
And
They
you're
can
you're
just-
acting like getting rid of the debt ceiling
You're
is
a-
like a line item veto. You have to pass legislation in order
No,
to get
you're
rid of
acting like you can pass legislation to save the country.
it. You can.
Okay, so tell me how we're going to pay off $17 trillion of debt with a law.
Simple. Here's how you do it. Right now, you let us hit the debt ceiling. We can't take in more than we have. You can't spend more than we have coming in. Then you have, with the debt ceiling,
Hold on,
you can't spend more than
Well,
you're
that
taking
doesn't
in.
pay it off.
Hold on,
No,
let
but
Greg
then
finish.
over time, you commit 5-10%, and you can like we could have done it when we had a surplus in the early 2000s if we would decided to go that way, but we didn't go that way. But you absolutely can if you
And
get
we
the willpower
never
behind
will.
it. You're saying we never will.
You're saying your guys' argument a minute ago from we can't have a balanced budget amendment because there's no one in Congress that would do it. But now you're
I
telling
don't think
me
a balanced budget amendment's a good idea. When Sandy happens, you don't want to be locked into a balanced budget. You want to be able to borrow a little bit of money, be able to aid victims in New York and New Jersey, and then be able to pay it back over time. You don't want to be locked into a balanced budget.
Well, the private market
I disagree.
Can take care of.
I think if a Sandy
Hold on,
happens,
Galt.
you stop spending on something else and spend on Sandy if it's that important.
You can do it that way.
So then it would be you could lock it in with a balanced budget because if Sandy aid really is that important, then maybe corporate welfare is not. So stop giving to big business and give to Sandy relief. But again, then you'd have to
Why
stop
do we need
spending
to
more.
give to anyone?
I don't think we should.
Tell me a
But-
subsidy that has worked.
No subsidies ever work. I'm
Okay.
not arguing for that. I'm saying that I would rather have a balanced budget amendment than no balanced
And I
budget
would rather
amendment.
have no budget.
All right,
And you would rather have no government. But again, we're talking about the real world today. I, too, am an AMCAP at heart. I, too, live in the real world and must operate upon real laws that exist in our society. And I also must understand that an AMCAP society will never exist in my life, nor in yours. And it is a fool's errand to operate as if you're ever going to live in such a world.
They're like exactly the
I'm
same age.
sorry.
I don't know why I'm going to do this, but I'm going to. I'm going to give the microphone to Maya Axton. You think Galt's an anarchist? All right.
I'm not that bad.
She's over here. She's just fuming. So I'm going to give her the microphone. Let's hear your opinion.
Okay, well, they're talking about this little tiny budget of $17 trillion debt. And it's $17 trillion. That's nothing to the entirety of the debt of the United States.
331.
Yeah, I mean, this is just discretionary spending. Who cares? This is just a play around fund. I mean, our play around fund's $17 trillion, which, I mean, we're never going to be able to pay that back in any realistic sense, considering we keep monetizing the debt and printing more money. So we're kind of devaluing our own dollar that we're turning into debt anyway. So we can't necessarily realistically pay it off. The only true response we have to this, by passing a quote-unquote law, is to default on our debt.
Yep.
That's honestly the only true option we have if we want to continue saving the whole idea of 50 United States. I mean, you can reset and we can default. We can fracture into multiple regions in a country, which has been a realistic talking point they've had.
Like 50 regions?
Not 50 regions. No. There's 4 regions. 4 regions, as they've realistically talked about. If the country was to fracture, we default on our debt. Because if people come to call on their debt, we're going to fracture into 4 splits because China owns most of our ass anyways.
So help me God, if I get put into some sort of Canadian region, I will.
I won't let that happen.
Well, you make it 5 regions because my house is
But
going
you
to be
guys
a
are
fifth.
arguing over invalid anything. And you guys are arguing over nothing.
Chris Toria.
Well, those are in the future spending is what you're talking about, correct? The 17 trillion is our national debt up until this point because of our budget deficits.
Discretionary spending.
Discretionary
That's not our
spending.
entire debt.
No, I know, but our entitlements are projected into the future. There's
entitlements. There's real spending. When we run a country off of like 5 or 6 different books. This is not the entirety of our debt at 17 trillion.
It's 17 trillion on paper in the U.S. Treasury. There is other debt. You could consider Federal Reserve balances as being part of the national debt to an extent because the Fed's essentially the national bank. The entitlement is projected at present value. So that's assuming a certain level of revenue, a certain level of GDP growth, discounted at present value by the interest rate equals something like $200 trillion. So that's not on paper yet. That's just a projection. So there are a lot of numbers. The entitlement one is the big one. That what we have now, this debt ceiling debate is pretty much kind of irrelevant to the fact that
That's what I've been saying.
In the next 20 years,
it
that
doesn't not matter.
I mean, we haven't had a budget since April 29th of 2009. The last time we had a true real budget was 1997. So we're going to talk about a debt ceiling when we hadn't even passed a budget?
No, I don't disagree that our situation is much worse than arguing over the debt ceiling. What I was trying to make a point of is you trying to say that we should replace it with removing the debt ceiling in its entirety and let Congress run free just so it can collapse upon itself is stupid. That was my point. And you're saying that I'm stupid because the debt ceiling doesn't really exist anyway. Because they just raise it whenever they want.
You're all stupid.
If that's the case, then you really don't have an argument because your alternative is to do the same thing but look different on paper.
You're wrong. I don't have an argument.
I'm on Team Paul Elmore. Paul, you're going to get the last word. We're wrapping up. So why don't you give us your final thoughts here for this episode of We Are Libertarians?
I don't know. Maybe I'm more of a minarchist than an anarchist, and I guess I entertain this idea that perhaps there's some way to kind of taper off government, but I don't know. I guess there's a possibility that it may just have to collapse before. I think
it has to.
Well, I had this hope that maybe if we can educate people, and I think that's what is just for people to understand, and then they can, whatever happens. I think that's the most important thing.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for joining on the Google Hangout. And we'll try to publicize this in advance so next time we can get more people on and chat with more folks.
Yeah.
Don't end the broadcast or do anything yet. Let's mix it up. Let's go to Creighton next, and then we'll go to Chris, and then we'll end with Greg, and then me. So final thoughts on Fiscal Cliff, on the brouhaha over the debt and Red Dawn and the collapse of the entire world.
I haven't seen the new Red Dawn. Have you seen the new
I have not seen. I've never seen the old Red Dawn.
Is it good? I think I want to see it, though. You haven't seen the old Red Dawn?
No. Huh.
Dude, what's the matter with you? I know, right? God. Fiscal Cliff, I mean, I'd been saying from the beginning that Obama was going to get what he wanted and that Republicans would come out with nothing because they're all a bunch of idiots. But for the debt ceiling, I mean, I didn't really think about it as much before the podcast today, but I do kind of see it as the next big political battle. I'd say keep your eye on it because it's all that you're going to hear about for 2 months, and that we shouldn't just remove things and hope that Congress can kill us all with their reckless behavior and then hope that we can rise from the ashes like a phoenix, because that happened so well during the French Revolution. So just keep your eyes on the dead scene. Oh, and keep your eyes on people like Justin Amash, because they actually have, I think, proven their value as people that will stand up in the face of the tiger that is House leadership. Because he got kicked off. He didn't vote for Speaker Boehner again. I think he actually means what he says when he stands for these things. So that's me, Chris.
All right, the debt ceiling. It is irrelevant. No matter what the mainstream media tells you, it's going to end just like the fiscal cliff. Last minute, Congress will save the day and Obama will save us, and we'll avert another disaster. One thing Creighton said earlier in the episode, he said that it's a spending problem and not a tax problem. It is a tax problem as well. 47% of Americans already don't pay taxes. You think taxes are high now? Wait till that number's 48, 49, 50, and just going up, because people are going to get tired of it, and then it's going to become a tax problem. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Chris, can I come to your Galt's Gulch when it happens?
Galt's Gulch. That's a great thing. That's what we're going to name his ranch. Galt's Gulch.
Galt's Gulch.
He doesn't have a ranch. He has his mom's basement.
I hope what happens with the debt ceiling is that the Republicans are able to get meaningful cuts. I know they're going to raise it,
never will,
but they might be able to shift the discussion in that manner. Would be my hope. Because
I hope
it is a huge thing that will happen. Like, if it happens, it will be huge to the economy, enormous, way more than the fiscal cliff. Fiscal cliff was going to be nothing. But then, lastly, there was one good thing in the fiscal cliff. Right now, if you have a 401k, you can turn it over to a Roth IRA right now. I just wanted to let anyone know. With a 401k, you're deferring paying taxes until you take them out. With a Roth IRA, you pay them up front, but then you don't have to take any taxes, have it taken out of your taxes when you start withdrawing, when you're of age for retirement.
What if you're about to withdraw already?
If you're about to withdraw already, you're able to do it without penalty.
To switch it over?
You have to pay the immediate taxes, but you can withdraw the future withdrawals out.
My dad's about to retire.
It is a huge deal for people. They should definitely do it if they're willing to take the tax hit this year.
Look at Greg Ramsey over here. Thank you, Greg.
You mean Gore? Oh, I got it.
Yeah, Greg Ramsey.
I got it.
Yeah. I want to highlight the fact that the health savings accounts were capped at $2,000. Health savings accounts are incredibly important for families, especially families with special needs children, or families who may send their child to a school of the blind, for instance. Health savings accounts, you put your money in pre-tax, you build up a health savings account, and then you were able to use that on qualifying funds. They had already limited what you could spend your HSA funds on. Now they've capped it at $2,000, rendering the entire program almost meaningless at this point. I mean, it's really just good for, maybe getting some eyeglasses or something, but it doesn't really go to benefit families that truly need that kind of help, especially families with children with special needs.
That's a result of those medical lobbyists.
It is part of Obamacare, and it's one of those things that were passed in Obamacare. People were all for Obamacare at large, and then they find out that their health spending account that they use, that they depend on, is capped at $2,000. And it's one of the unforeseen consequences by your average citizen. And so I would just encourage people to continue to get out there and do what Paul said. Educate your friends. Find resources. We hope that you like We're Libertarians, that you'll share our stuff, that you'll promote the website and the podcast, but also find other resources and share knowledge with your friends and spread the word, and just say, listen, if you don't like that your health spending account, if you don't like that $50 more a month is coming out of your paycheck, then you have to pay attention to politics, you have to pay attention to the news, and you have to separate the bullshit from the truth. And education is the way out. I mean, other than going all Red Dawn and going all Galt, education.
Disclaimer:
is the
I don't want anyone to say that they listened to the podcast and went out and killed someone because of me.
No, we know you're not really going to get a gun. We know that it's
what I'm going to get a gun.
I know you're going to get a gun, but you're not going to get a gun and go to Washington and be crazy.
Yeah.
So, all right. We want to thank you for listening to this episode of We're Libertarians. As always, go check out audible.com. It's audibletrial.com/WAL. You can check out all of our sponsors at wearelibertarians.com. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, and we'll see you next week. Music for We Are Libertarians is provided by Hoosier musician Brian Keith Wallen. Please check out his website, briankeithwallen.com. The song is Bad Spell. This podcast is produced by What is a Hoosier Productions.